I don't know what's going on. I think I died. I see a vampire.
I have been expecting you.
Oh my god. What is going on? Is that a vampire? Am I in Redfall? Oh god. No, please. Wait, did I die? I don't even know if I got shot. Did I get bitten? Or did I get shot? I don't really know. Okay. Okay. I died.
I got hit hard and drug off. Lights out.
From the studio that brought you amazing games like the Dishonored franchise, the Prey reboot, and the new success Deathloop, comes Redfall, a game that's been in development for 6 years and is far worse than you could have imagined. Everything about this game's release and the events leading up to it was a failure. I had no hope for this game when it was first shown off. It looked horrible, and as more of it was being showcased, it kept getting worse. But as it was Arcane, who made one of my favorite games, Dishonored, I put my trust in them, and that trust got turned into shattered dreams of copium. This game is horrible, and it's far worse than you could have imagined. There's nothing about it where I can say I had fun. Everything about this game was a failure, but let's just get into it.
Redfall, if you don't know, is a live service first-person shooter about vampires who have taken over the town Redfall. This also holds subplot or the main plot, I'm not too sure, but it's about how the vampires came to be, and it's stupid because it's treated like a subplot, but it's the main plot. But for half the game, it's not the main plot, it's a subplot. I'm baffed. I don't know anything that's happening. There's never a clear plot point, and the game wants you to care about its plot points. But how can I care about it if the game itself doesn't know where it wants to take the story? And anytime you get into actual story bits, you see like these like skeleton things and they're talking. There's like no actual real cutscenes or dialogue sequences that you get to interact with another person to learn about a story. No, instead you're watching the story from a third-person perspective. You're watching from like an outside perspective. So it has no real correlation to you, the player. Like, what? Also, what really sucks about this game is its characters. You can play as one of 4 unique characters who are all ugly as fuck, with personalities of that 13-year-old is capable of coming up with, but ultimately becoming a Fortnite character who throws out one-liners and zingers, thinking they're edgy or cool, but instead come off as cringy. These characters should be put in a basement where they can rot away. They're not any fun, or even that unique. Want to know more about them? Too bad! The only amount of information you will ever get through them is through the character descriptions, and or maybe a mission or two. No matter who you choose from the 4 characters, they all have different dialogue but ultimately end up being the same, and they all end up feeling very shallow. But other than that, this game has the worst story I've ever played of any recent game from the last few years. And that's because the story is such an afterthought. Cutscenes are blue screenshots with panning effects, what the fuck? But also, as the story goes, it's truly shit. And that's because the game answers nothing and refuses to tell you anything you actually care about. So what is Redfall exactly? And I bring that up because the very first thing that happens in the game is you wake up and see a hot vampire lady who's about to kill you, but then gets hit by the sun. She mentions something about Redfall, where she then retreats. The usual vampire stuff, alright, fine. But 5 minutes later into the game, when you can finally walk around, vampires are walking during the sun. Like, what? I'm so baffed. How? When? Why? What changed? Why can't she walk around but they can? When did this happen exactly? So Redfall is the town, but also an eclipse, I think. As looking up at the sky, it looks like an eclipse, but there's never a moment when an eclipse actually happens. Like, there's no mission or build up to this event, which is really weird. It's so dumb. I've never seen writing this bad, especially from a AAA game. Who fact-checked this? And also, who is she? What's her deal? What correlation do we have? Do we know her? It looks like we know her. Like, this is the first time we're meeting her. Like, I have so many questions which go unanswered, and in general, that's what's gonna happen as you play this game. It's wild to me that this game will set you up in the middle of a story and then answers almost nothing. And any question that is answered is so lackluster. If the story was any good, it could have saved the game, but it doesn't. And also, you have to play this game via multiplayer to get the full dialogue sequences. I had to play it alone, but for the small amount I played with a friend, dialogue is spread out to make for a full conversation that make up for the story. So you have to play multiplayer, but I couldn't. It was so stupid.
Be the fastest way to find supplies.
No wonder. Huh.
Your children crying out for me. I need you here. And you need me to be well. I have brought you down from the sky. I am the Hollow Man.
I've never heard this dialogue before, what? And as for NPCs you meet along the way, you don't. You only meet NPCs within the confines of the two main safe houses you unlock, and that's it. But they suck. I don't know them. I know nothing about them, and the more I do learn about them, the less I care about them. They're not interesting and they lack any charisma or anything to make them unique. Who are they? What are they? Why do I care about them? Why do we think we know each other? We don't. You literally do one mission. You go to the firehouse, you save the firehouse, and then for some reason you know these people. Like, no, I don't. Who are these men? At the end of the day, all I know is the story for Redfall is a 1 out of 10. It's not good in any way. It is the absolute worst dog shit story I've played. It has its moments, don't get me wrong, but for the majority of the game, it's such an awful experience that I couldn't wait for it to end. But as for the gameplay, which could save it, hopefully, maybe, probably not, you'll see. Alright, I lied. It's a broken mess, it doesn't work. The amount of times the game crashed on me or started bugging out is insane. Take this out too, man. This wire is a little bit annoying. Why? Why? Why did it close? All I did was run. Thankfully, when comparing myself to others, mine was less severe, but holy shit, this game is a clusterfuck of walking disasters. Anywhere and everywhere I would go, the game would have severe FPS drops, and multiple sessions would have progression bugs where I could not progress at all without having to reset my whole computer, losing out on 40 to 50 minutes of gameplay. And it's more than once throughout multiple missions where I would need an item or an audio cue or whatever. The game would sometimes bug out and wouldn't have the thing I need, and it got so bad that this is the first time where I might have ended up quitting the game halfway through with a half-finished review. Randomly one day the game decided not to be bugged and it played fine, which was so strange to me because I did everything I could to make it work again. So unfortunately I did end up finishing the game, and throughout my whole time of playing it, I was bored and I couldn't wait to finish it. This game is dead, and not as in the vampires, but as in the gameplay blows chunks. Like the game's combat. The gunplay is boring. You have different guns, but they all feel the same. Nothing about them feels unique. When in combat to that of Arcane Austin's last game, Prey, where every gun was unique. But here, I could care less. There's only 8 different types of guns throughout the whole game, and as you level up, you'll find the RNG color variant. But it's such a needless system for a game like this, where the RNG is the equivalent of finding red Skittles. That the game is incredibly shallow with its RNG, and every variant of a gun is never unique. They look, feel, and act the same. The only difference is one might do more damage over the other. But damage isn't enough when there's a lack of feedback from the guns. No matter what I'm using, the guns feel like punching a sponge. You know it hit, but there's no satisfaction. The sound and visual effects are terrible. I never got excited or felt anything when I was in a firefight. And there's never a reason to ever be in a firefight. I would often run past everyone and get to the end, as fighting is pointless. You don't gain anything. There's no reward for killing anyone. You might level up, but what's the point when enemies scale to your level? So leveling up means having to fight higher scale enemies who become spongier. What? The only enjoyment I had with this game was the fact that enemies never felt that spongy, as a headshot would result in death. But hey, at least I got that right. Otherwise, Redfall is a hero shooter, so you have powers, but the powers are pointless where they amount to nothing. They don't have any of the fun factor like Dishonored, and because the game wants to be played co-op, you may synergize with your buds, but I couldn't due to how buggy it was for my friend. I had to play it alone, and with that came trying my best. and that was me just running away with his stealth ability. I didn't really use anything else. It worked out for me as my character is good for running past enemies, but my guy wasn't meant to be played head on. If this game wasn't meant to be played co-op and instead was single player where you had a wide array of powers, it would have been way better. But as it is right now, it sucks. I would play with multiplayer with randoms, but I can't. There's no way to do so. I was stuck with playing by myself, but I don't get why, if the game was designed as a hero shooter to be played with multiplayer while also being single player, why is it that I can't play with randoms who are my level? It's stupid. And it's not even the worst thing about the game. The AI is far worse. It is the worst AI I've ever seen. It's so bad. When in firefights, the AI would randomly bug out and would sometimes forget where they are. I would walk away, then would come back only to repeat the process. And then sometimes they would stay within the firefight but be so bugged out that they shoot at me but miss every single shot and will not stop. Sometimes randomly 1 or 2 will be gods where they will never seem to miss a single bullet. The AI has inconsistent behavior that doesn't make any sense. It would be one thing if it was a variation on the enemy types, but there isn't any. There's only 2 different types of enemies and 3 different factions, which are just cosmetic differences. But as factions go, they actually behave the same. If there was a ranking system behind the enemy types, like the Arkham series, or even the other, I don't know, game they developed, Dishonored, I would get it, but there isn't. When Joe Schmo from Hillbilly Town number 1 can't shoot me, but Joe Schmo 2 from the same town can, it feels inconsistent. I'm talking about enemy variety. There's only 1 generic vampire type and 3 different mini-boss vampires. But they are so unimaginative through design, and the way they fight is a joke. They teleport on attack, then they run away, and then they teleport back and attack. But if you have a shotgun, just keep blasting, and they can't do anything. It's stupid. But ultimately, the worst thing about fighting vampires is how inefficient it is. So when fighting vampires, you need weapons with stakes, and not every weapon has them. So you will be interchanging weapons while in a firefight trying not to die. And you need the stakes, otherwise vampires regain their life. But all of this could have been solved if the game just gave you, you know, the stake. It has melee, so why not just give me the melee as a stake so I can stake the vampires without having to shoot them and then change the weapons? It's so stupid. And you might go, well, there might be a lore reason, but there isn't. The game straight up gives you stakes when you're fighting normal ass bosses, so there's nothing unique about it. And as for bosses themselves, holy shit, they're just as if not worse than the mini bosses. They're so easy to defeat. They can be cheesed without any effort. The only difficult thing about them is the amount of damage they can do, but other than that, they are dull and unimaginative. And there is one boss, I don't even know his name, the Radium Man. I forget his actual name, but this guy takes 45 years to show up and the sky's red linings going down. It's like, dude, I don't care about this, and he shows up all the time. He is a main boss that you fight, but he blows chunks. It's not fun to fight him, and fighting him is sometimes such a cheese. He can be cheesed so easily. He's so stupid. This whole game is stupid. Regardless, Redfall, by all accounts, is an open world game. Let's just talk about that. While Redfall is an open world game, it shouldn't have been open world, as it hurts the game more than anything. The open world is awful. The world has nothing to it that makes it stand out. Every area, building, every location, no matter where you go, looks, feels and sounds the same. Everywhere you go, the scenery never feels like it changes. The entire map feels like it's all part of the same location, and you go to another part of the map later on in the game and it still feels like the same exact goddamn map. I've gone into a lot of different buildings. I've been all over the map, but there's only ever a slight difference between the areas you go and buildings you visit. Half the time I have to question if I've already been to one place or another, as a lot of the map is confusing and lifeless. You never meet any NPCs outside of the 2 towns. There's no life at all throughout the whole world. No animals, no NPCs, no objects to interact with, no cars or anything to do that can be fun. Every area is lifeless. There's nothing. There's never anything to do other than from getting from point A to point B. There's never a point where I had to stop and stare at a site, as none of it was interesting. This game has no unique landmarks or areas that make this game feel like it needed to be an open world. There's only ever been 2 or 3 times throughout the whole game where I went, oh, that's cool. But for the most part, the game lacks any art direction, which is strange from Arcane, as in my opinion, every game from them I had to stop and stare. And what makes Arcane games so unique above everybody else comes from their art direction, with that of Dishonored's oil paintings or Prairie's art deco scene to Deathloop's meta-modernism. But Redfall is nothing. It's just a generic modern art style that plays a lot of different games of today. It's just a Fortnite art style but slightly different. That's it. Another thing that makes me question why this was even an open world comes from the visual storytelling. It's awful. One of the reasons why I really like open world games is because of how they can tell the backstory to a town I've never been in, or how it used to be, or how it is. I love talking to NPCs and exploring new and different areas, but here in Redfall, everything blows chunks. You never get a sense for how the world used to operate, or what the town Redfall used to be like, what made it unique, and why was it targeted above everywhere else. There were so many unanswered questions. Just about everything to do with the open world is lifeless. There's only 3 things you can do within this whole open world, and they are your main story missions, vampire hideouts, and unlocking safe houses. That's it. You can also collect things, but it's the most pointless bullshit collectathon I've ever played. Don't bother. And the missions themselves, just like the open world, is lifeless and uninspired. Most missions will take you through the map while also being the shittiest missions you will ever play. They add to nothing. There's no plot or reason for them to exist. Like, one of them is put a clock on Dad's gravestone, and then the follow-up to that mission is get it back due to regret. Like, how in the world are those missions? Why do they count? Why do they exist? This game could have been way shorter, and I wish it was. There are some missions that are better than others, where they go to a whole new location, but they're so far and few that when they happen, you wish the whole game was level-based. But those missions take forever to do, as you need to do 6 extra side missions to then complete in order to then do the actual main mission where you go to the new location. It's stupid, but regardless, I don't want to get into it. The game being open world just did it no favors.
Anyway, as for gameplay, Redfall has to get a 3 out of 10. While there's nothing to praise about it, at least it functions fine and it plays okay. But for Arcane's history and how they've grown as a studio, this is a huge blowback. This is also the first £70 game through Xbox, and thankfully this game was on Game Pass, but if it wasn't, I would be freaking out way more. If it's not the £70 at all, this game shows just how baffling the £70 price point is. This game has nothing about quality that shows that it's worth £70. And also, this game would have been £70 if it wasn't for Microsoft acquiring Bethesda last year, or how many years ago. It's baffling. It's just absolutely baffling. This game came out 6 years too late and it missed a Fortnite bus, and now it has to suffer a slow but decaying fate of fading into the darkness, and no matter how many updates or fixes this game will have, it's better to just leave it alone. Just leave it alone and let it rot away, because everyone wants to move ahead, and almost everybody's not even talking about this game anymore, because it's actually a piece of shit game that should just be left alone in the basement where it can rot, where no one can just see it. It can age like fine milk. Age like fine milk. It can just be milk, man. It's just milk. It's bad. It's bad. Just leave it alone, Microsoft. Anyway, if you like this video, hit me up on the socials, on the Twitter, on the mic, on the YouTubes. Ha hee hee hoo ha.
You might be wondering, did I actually die? And the answer to that is yes. Yep, I died.